Local boy heads to Boston, returns to help grow the local economy. Who is he? You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Myrtle Beach Herald. We're focused on local companies, and we're visiting with Dick Rosen, the retired Chief Executive Officer for the AVX Corporation, and now they're the chairman of their board. Good morning, Dick.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
It's amazing to think about the impact AVX has had on the area for so long, and of course you're involved in a lot of other entities. I think I've seen your picture in the paper recently with a community bank standing
Yes.
on a big bulldozer.
That's right. It's now a building, and it's a great opportunity.
It is a beautiful location there on the corner of, what, 38th and Grissom Parkway?
Grissom Parkway, yes.
That has really expanded. I was so excited to see when y'all opened the bank. I think it was in July of '01. You had the governor visiting. Governor Hodges was in, and to have seen the little location there, which is now, I guess, the Waccamaw Community Foundation.
It was almost a full-size closet.
I'm sure David and Jay would.
You couldn't have a meeting with more than 4 people; it wouldn't fit.
It was just great thinking to see the commitment of operating. I mean, you sure want to give the full-fledged impression at the get-go, but at the same time knowing that we're really watching the bucks of the folks that have invested to make this thing happen, as opposed to oftentimes a community bank will open with this gigantic facility where they've got millions invested in brick and mortar.
Well, it's been a great experience for me, and totally different than anything I've done in my life. And the people I've worked with there have been an exciting change of pace for me. And it was the right time in my life, as I had retired from AVX and was looking for something I could make some small contribution to it, at least. And I think I've been able to do that, which has been great for me.
Crescent Bank, absolutely.
Yeah.
Real quick about yourself, Dick. Are you originally from the area?
I'm from Georgetown.
You're from Georgetown, you mean around D.C. or?
No, down 30 miles.
30 minutes south of here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Family lived there forever.
Your family's been there for a heck of a long time.
Dad's family since the late 1800s.
Is that right? Had you always known that you wanted to be close to home?
Nope. Just dumb luck, which we're very thankful for, but it was not in the plans. I studied electrical engineering and didn't really think there was anything to do here. I think years ago I applied for a job at what was then Aerovox, and they didn't have anything for me, so coming back was very nice for me, and my wife loves it, and she's from Boston area. So
is that right?
It's been a great homecoming, and we loved it.
And that was a good move for her. I guess that was in the early 90s when you all moved down.
No, it was 74.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 30 years ago.
Okay. Aerovox so that's the predecessor name to AVX,
right.
Or?
Aerovox was a company which owned, among other things, the pieces of a company which today is AVX. AVX was much smaller. It was 2 facilities, but it belonged to this company called Aerovox. And in 1970, I went to work for them in 1972, and 3 or 4 months later, they spun off the company AVX. AVX served the semiconductor industry, Aerovox the power industry, lights. We make capacitors, but one was high voltage power from the walls, and what we did with batteries and semiconductors, AVX. And that was really the differentiation. The products were made differently, but it was a function that was most important.
Now, had your family had any involvement with Aerovox, or?
No, my family were lawyers. And
is that right?
Yeah, no, I was the only engineer.
Had you ever thought about possibly going into the law? With the family in the law, oftentimes
much later. I always said at 50 I was going to retire and go to law school, but that's been a long time ago, so I blew that one.
I'm sure there was always that yearning on somebody's part. Any family still down in Georgetown?
I still have an 85-year-old uncle practicing law in Georgetown.
Is that right?
Yeah, Dad died a few years ago. He worked until he was about 82, so.
That's fascinating. My parents, my dad's an attorney, but he practiced law with his mother and father, who one passed away in his law office at 92, and the other one practiced to 97.
Wow.
Passed away a year later in Durham, North Carolina. Yeah, so great appreciation for the law. It's
So how come you didn't go to law school?
well, I did. I attended law school. I didn't do very well, so I came down and bought the TV station.
Oh.
So things have worked out well. God's plan was different than my own. What about, you mentioned that about leaving the area, of course, not getting that job early on at Aerovox, and then, so did you attend school here in the area?
No, I went to high school in Georgetown, but I went to college in Boston.
Is that right?
Well, Cambridge, actually.
Oh, yeah. So there, in Cambridge, there's either Harvard
It's
or
not
there's
Harvard.
MIT. That's right.
It's not Harvard, it's the other one.
The Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That'd be exciting. Probably not a lot of folks coming out of Georgetown heading to MIT.
No, that was pretty frightening for a while, but somehow I managed to get through it. It was a great experience. I mean, it was prepared me for what later became my life. There were a lot of people from all over the world, and Boston was from Georgetown, it was certainly a bit different, but it was really a cosmopolitan city. It had almost everything in it, including someone who became my wife shortly, a few years later. But it was a great learning experience for me. I was very fortunate.
You all met there in Boston?
Well, a fraternity, she was from 30 miles away, and a fraternity brother fixed me up. And, I think the end of my freshman year, we got married when I got out of school.
Is that right? Have you kept up with that fraternity brother?
No, actually I haven't. We lost him years ago. I don't know where he went.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he didn't stay around too long. He left school in a year or so.
Uh-huh. Did family visit you much while you were up in Boston? Or were they always encouraging you to come home?
Well, after we got married, and as soon as you have grandchildren, grandparents come to see you. So, so we lived in a place called Williamstown, which is western Massachusetts.
Right.
And grandmother, who was still around, Dad's mother from Georgetown, and Mom and Dad came, and of course my wife's family came to see us fairly often.
Yeah.
Well, after we had children.
After you had children, that's right. No one.
I know we have grandchildren now, so we know how that works.
Yeah. Where are they located?
Tampa, Florida, Westport, Connecticut, and Clemens, North Carolina, which is basically Winston-Salem.
Right outside of Winston, yeah, near Advance. Yeah, that's a great area, Bermuda Run. It's so fascinating when you think about where family heads. Had there ever been a feeling that you'd get them back to the Myrtle Beach area? They grew up here.
Well, they didn't. Heidi, our daughter, who's the youngest, started 6th grade here, and the boys were 10 and 11, 10th and 9th and 10th grade. So,
right.
So they finished up here, and this they consider home. But they actually weren't here that long, particularly the boys. Mm-hmm. Although this is home, and they come back. But one of them works for Yum, which is Pizza Hut, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell.
Yeah.
He's done very well with them. He's an operating officer in one of their groups, and the other one does seat cushions for the Super Bowl and other promotional things. And that's not a Myrtle Beach area project. And our daughter's husband is a banker up in Winston-Salem.
That's great.
I don't think they'll come home. I wish they did, but they come to visit, but they're not going to move back.
That may have been a subliminal reason for you to get into banking. To help set up a bank was to
I
get
thought
your...
about that, but he won't come back.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the...
They really like it up there. It's a great area, and they're very happy, which is what we want for them.
Winston-Salem, of course, formerly the headquarters of Wachovia, which First Union snuck away with, but BB&T's got a big presence. Is that right?
Yeah,
they're in Winston. They've got a big presence.
Yeah. They liked it very much, so that's what's important.
Well, with the thoughts about that Coastal Carolina arena coming on board, it may be that the son who's down, I guess, in Tampa, who's doing the seat cushions.
The Connecticut kid is a seat cushion.
Is that right? Well, they may have some needs down here. I think there may be something open on the other side of the waterway, 15,000 seater. Yeah. They're going to have some needs for seat cushions as well. So you never know. It's so fascinating. When we think about AVX, you said you all arrived here in '74?
We came in. AVX was here in 47, 48, shortly after the war.
What originally set up AVX here in Horry, Georgetown County areas that long ago?
Well, there was a company in Olean, New York. Olean, New York is across was directly south of Buffalo on the Pennsylvania border. There was a gentleman named Charlie Crump, it was a private company. And after the war, they, whatever would have been called in, but the Economic Development Board was trying to recruit people to replace the Air Force Base, because the Air Force Base was had been pretty big during the war, and then it was reduced quite a bit.
Right.
And so they recruited companies, much like they do today, to come here, and there are various incentives. And his company's name was Electrical Reactants at the time, and the first building actually was a Quonset hut, as I understand. Obviously, I wasn't here, but on the old Air Force Base. I think not too far from where the terminal is today.
Is that right? That very close to where we're seated, yeah.
Right, the other side, but yes. The other side of the runway.
Right,
yeah.
the other side of the runway.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Of course, oftentimes, folks will go to great lengths. We think about some of the incentives, and of course, near another airport, all the incentives in the Greensboro area to bring FedEx in.
Right.
You think about incentives, we've been hearing about all the incentives offered to Dell to get them into North Carolina, and obviously we hear about that here, just little things like Avcraft close by.
It's
here
been going on for a long time.
They really oftentimes dramatic efforts made to get groups in. That's. And that was back in the 40s, so it's something that folks in Horry County have been thinking about for a long time.
And we think it worked pretty well.
Absolutely. Of course, it was fascinating reading a little profile about you, but an interview that had been held in '01 when in the Myrtle Beach area you all had north of 2,500 folks here.
Right. Well, there was I facetiously call it the dot garbage time, which is not a very nice thing, but most people today experience in some way or another the problems, the opportunities with the dot-com businesses, and then companies like Lucent and Nortel, Cisco built all this equipment and bought lots of capacitors. That was a boom time for the cellular phone business when it was really growing. And we supply everyone in the electronics business, but these industries in particular, the infrastructure businesses and the communication businesses, the computer stays, it's really good, but it's flat. It doesn't grow huge spikes like these other two did. And they built enormous inventories. And if all parts are used in everything they build, the demand was very, very high. And we did, that year we did about $2.6 billion.
No way.
Which is a lot more than we've done. But unfortunately, a lot of it went to inventory. And the next few years after that were not too good.
Because they had a lot of stuff sitting on the shelves.
They had a lot of stuff on the shelves, and a lot of companies were, well, there were many stories about stuff that equipment that Cisco sold that basically they repossessed 2 years later and was still in the box. It had never even been used. But these dot-com folks needed this kind of equipment. And it was an artificial requirement in terms of the real needs, and it was really fun while it lasted, but it also wasn't real, and we paid the price for the next few years, and actually just been, in the past year started to truly recover. So it was a tough one.
Who would be your most, and of course I know you expressed clearly before we started, you're the retired Chief Executive Officer of AVX. I think John Gilbertson holds that reign now. And
doing very well.
And I'm sure that's right, as you say, coming out of tough times, into trying to get back into good times and maintaining that good feel within the company. I know when you get to a high and then have to cut staff, it sounds like almost in half.
It was pretty dramatic.
And of course, that's probably pretty good on the scale of a lot of folks when you think about Nortel's influence in the triangle, going from an incredible number down to virtually nothing. Right. You think about companies like that were just taking much of what you all produced and, as you said, leaving them on shelves.
Well, I think John had done a phenomenal job. I left at a time that was pretty difficult, and he stepped into a situation, not by either of our plans, but it just happened. I decided to leave a few years ago and was very confident that John could do a great job, and he has, but he didn't have an easy time. He still doesn't, but he's been able to reorganize the company with as few reductions. They're pretty substantial, you said. Not quite half, but it was pretty much half at one point. There's been some uptick, but it's still nowhere near where it was anywhere in the world, not just in Myrtle Beach. But he's been able to get the company back on a profitable basis, and I think I'll take credit. I found some really good guys, and there was no problem replacing me, and they've done well.
It's always, you know, it's so tough at times to want strong folks to come in after you. Oftentimes it's so easy to encourage them to bring in somebody who's going to run something down so that they're always saying, where's Dick? I wish we had Dick back.
No.
It's great that you had the fortitude to want to bring in a strong player after you to really grow the company.
Well, I told someone, actually we've been associated with a company in Japan, Kyocera, for some time. And I once was speaking to the gentleman who was the chairman and the founder of Kyocera. And I said, one of the measures of success is that there's a successor.
Mm-hmm.
I said, if you build this great company and you don't have anybody to succeed you and take over, then in many ways you've been a failure. And I think I would think I was lucky in some respects, because you're never really sure. But I think that, I think it's worked out very well, and I think that's important.
I think I saw that Kyocera has about a 70% stake in AVX. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 69 or so. Yes, it's right.
Now, is that, how long have they had that substantial a stake, or did they have even more? And
they bought AVX in 1990, and in 1995 we had a deal with the Kyocera leadership that if we reach certain goals in sales and profits, we could go public again. And in 95 we went public again, and we sold in two different instances, but about 25% at that point, and another 5 or 6% later. So it was public before 90, private, gone it
for 5 years,
and then 5 years later, and it's been public obviously since then.
That's fabulous. Well, I'm sure that had a good boon in the area. I don't think I was aware of that. I arrived in 95, so wasn't aware of that.
It was an exciting time.
Yeah, and surely for a lot of the folks, how many of the folks would be natives of the area, Dick, who even at the time around now where y'all are at, or AVX is around 12 to 1,500 folks here in the Horry, Georgetown County area. How many of those folks would be natives of the area, or have most of those folks been transplants to the area? Do you have any idea? Or
I'm sure at least 60 or 70% are native, and it might be higher.
Is that right?
If you take certain skill positions, that wouldn't be true, because there just aren't a whole lot of engineers in the area.
Right.
And we have a lot of technical staff. There are not a lot of the technical staff you'd find in the MIS areas. You might have more, but a lot of the management is from elsewhere, and at the same time, a lot of management is from here. The executive VP is a local guy. One of the guys that runs one of the bigger operations is a local guy. And then we have the New Jersey folks like Rochelle that
like our director, yeah.
That went to the Naval Academy, and he's a senior guy. I mean, we have a guy from England.
That's here in Horry County.
Yeah, he's a president of one of our operations. So we have a pretty diverse operation. We've got folks from all over the world in the Myrtle Beach operation, as well as places all over the world.
You know, when you think about a company that, as you say, surpassed $2.5 billion in sales, even in 2000, around that time.
We're about $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion now, in that range.
When to think about that, and it being headquartered, and of course, you'll see print materials that go out about AVX headquartered in Myrtle Beach, and I guess Myrtle Beach name's always on there. Of course, a lot of its presence throughout the county, but I mean in different locations throughout the county. But that principal thing in the city of Myrtle Beach, that's a huge aspect, just a magnificent moniker for the area to know that a sizable New York Stock Exchange publicly traded company is headquartered in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Is there another example of that I'm missing? I mean, is there
in Myrtle Beach?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't know.
I can't think of any that have a presence, a substantial presence. Obviously, there are.
We moved the headquarters. You know, you may have. I think you have a lot of companies you don't even know that are here that have small operations that are much larger than we are in the area. But you don't have many people that move the headquarters here.
Right.
And the saying is, the headquarters is wherever the boss wants it to be. And when it was my turn to be the boss, I wanted to live here, and John feels the same way, so it's still here.
That's great.
But we moved all the corporate functions here years ago, in 92, 93, something. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Which has worked out very well for us.
You were the CEO. You took the helm at 92.
Years go by, or something like that.
It's hard to put you on the spot there. That's right.
It was 92, 93. Yeah.
And so then, of course, you said John Gilbertson took it over a couple of years ago. So
Right. Well, John became president not too long after that. And again, I don't remember the exact year.
Yeah, no. Again.
John became president, chief operating officer, not too long after I became CEO.
If you were talking to a 7th grade class about AVX and sharing with them the primary product there, what would you tell a group of 7th graders, Dick, or 10th graders,
or adults,
or a group of adults? Let's say a group of Carolina People viewers. What would you share with them? We got about 5 minutes. It'll probably take you 10 seconds. But what's the?
Well, first of all, just quick. We make devices which support the electronics industry. It's not a primary performer like Intel with a microprocessor, with a computer that everybody identifies with. That's not what we make. The parts we make go in and enable many semiconductor devices to work in everything. Cell phones are the largest single volume user, but any kind of electronics, the cameras that we're on the air with, the acoustic equipment, watches, computers, spaceships, there isn't anything today that's electronic that our parts don't go in. I was trying to tell Renee, your assistant, what they do.
Yeah.
I tried to tell my wife too, and
yeah,
over the years. But quickly, they really have two major functions. One is to enable devices to work together. If you remember, and you're pretty young, so you may not, but you turn a vacuum cleaner to static on a radio or TV. Well, they interfere with each other. And a circuit board, a computer board, a cell phone, these semiconductor devices interfere with each other. And these devices, which we call capacitors, we make them lots of different forms, they filter the noise so they can operate together, they're compatible. Mm-hmm. The other major function, and there are a lot of things, but these are the major functions, they act as a nearby power source. In electronics, distance is time. The further the Intel device is from the battery or whatever powers it, the longer and it takes to get energy to it, and the slower it'll operate. So what you want is the energy source to be as physically close as you can. The battery charges our device, which is basically mounted either in or right next to the semiconductor. So the physical distance is much shorter, and the device can run faster. That's how they get these very high-speed processors. Mm-hmm. We make them for superconductors, supercomputers, just about everything. But those are, in layman's terms, those are two major users of devices. They control frequency, many other things. But everybody can probably understand those descriptions of what we do. So hopefully my wife will be able to understand that. And
yeah, that's right. So they really provide that flow between the battery and make that so much easier.
They're enabling products as opposed to the one that perform the function. They enable the products to perform do their thing better.
Well, what was going on before capacitors?
Capacitors have been here long before us.
Okay.
So they've been here a long time.
It's just the enabling capabilities.
Again, with the speeds that microprocessors, computers, and a phone's a computer. Everything's a computer today. Your watch is a computer. Mm-hmm. The need for more devices in different forms and different sizes, different values, grows and grows, and it continues to grow today. So it's not a new application. They've been here forever. There were different forms, but they've been here for. You talk to old ham radio operators from before the war; they know what capacitors are.
Mm-hmm. And the materials used to create I mean, these capacitors are flat out tiny. Can we?
Can I see them? No, you might. I mean, some of them are tiny. Well, what's made in Myrtle Beach is made out of ceramic and metal, and you make sandwiches. Layers of ceramic, metal layers, and you stack them up, and you may have 100 layers, 200 layers, 500 layers. Mm-hmm. And then our company makes them from other devices. We make them with plastic films for very high voltage applications, like you might see on a pole or in a train to control the engine speed. We make them out of a material called tantalum, which wouldn't mean anything to anybody, but it's It's another material that's used and you form tantalum oxides, which means less than everyone else.
Right.
But I mean, but we make them out of many different materials. Myrtle Beach's primary products are made from ceramic materials. You could say it's like the materials that you use to make a plate, but it's obviously very, very different. But it's ceramic, which plate material would be also.
Okay, that's good. We've run out of time. Would you be okay to come back, visit with us a little more tomorrow?
I guess so, if you let me.
Great. That we
Okay.
will. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Dick Rosen coming up next. Almost 5 decades in the capacitor business. Think about that. Almost 5 decades in the same business, and to have helped bring the corporate headquarters to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. One of the benefits of being at the reign of a company to do that, there were a lot of reasons for that. If you want to learn why, learn some of the reasons behind that, again, there's a heck of a lot of them. You got to come back and be with us tomorrow to learn more. Stay tuned to Dick Rosen Part 2 coming up tomorrow.